Will the Angels bring back Ron Washington to manage this team in 2026?
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Ron Washington has expressed interest in wanting to manage again and wanting to manage the Halos in 2026. So we're going to share 4 reasons why that could be a really good idea. And then we're going to share 4 reasons why it isn't such a good idea. And then we're going to finish our show today by sharing what we would do. But before we get there, let's thank our sponsor, Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Was your wrist hurt, Mike, from the bowling yesterday? Man, it was like,
I did so good.
Yeah, incredible day, meeting all of our everydayers. We really appreciate you guys coming out for that, helping support the YMCA of Orange County, and hanging out with some of our everydayers. And Logan O'Hoppy is great stuff. Listen, we've been fans of this team for years. We appreciate you being here. We're here every weekday talking Angels baseball with you. Check us out wherever you listen to podcasts, or whether you're watching or listening. Come on over to today's show on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe button. That really helps us out, puts us in front of other Angel fans who might not know about Locked On Angels, and get in the comment section, because it's the best way to get in touch with us, be part of the conversation. Also hit us up at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros, wherever you social your medias, you can find us there.
Yeah, we didn't want to talk about this weekend series, so we decided to talk about Ron Washington. It was just not fun to watch the Angels this weekend, and it's your typical September being an Angel fan, right? And so it does bring up a question about what happens next year. Now, speaking of Ron Washington, Jon Heyman shared some news in the New York Post over the weekend. He said 2 things. One, Albert Pujols and his relationship with Angels higher-ups is okay, despite a rough inning in Anaheim. And the Angels are more open to Ron Washington returning to the dugout now that he is after his procedure. So, John, it got us thinking, what are some reasons to bring Wash back? And then we're going to talk about the reasons why they possibly won't bring Wash back. And then we're going to finish our show today by giving our thoughts on that. So why don't you start us with 4 reasonable thoughts as to why the Angels should bring Ron Washington back?
I got to go back and play the tape, because I thought you said Albert Pujols and his rough inning with Anaheim, but it was rough ending. But there were so many rough innings for the Angels this past weekend. I can't blame you for maybe saying that. That made me laugh. Well, Mike, look, if Ron Washington wants to come back next year, and the 4 reasons that he should, well, it seems like he's free and clear of the health issues that have come along with the heart problems he was having. Quadruple bypass surgery.
Dang.
Insane. And it seems like, he's been eating better, stopped smoking, right? Doing all of those things that he should be doing as a 73-year-old man. And he will be medically cleared by December. But I think also above that is the fact that he's expressed a desire to return. He says, I miss baseball. If Perry's going to have me back, I certainly want to come back and finish what we started. And I think that's a good point in terms of finishing what they started, which leads into the next point, doesn't it, Mike?
Yeah, there's some continuity, I think, that this young core and maybe even the front office could use having Ron Washington back, that it's now 3 years in a row that they've had the same manager. I know that they've had, Ray Montgomery fill in a little bit, but when was the last time that they had a manager for 3 straight years? Mike Scioscia, right? Like that was the last time that happened. And so I think maybe some continuity is really important for this young roster that the Angels have. Some of the young players, they did show some promise. They are developing and growing. A lot of this stuff maybe could have happened in the minor leagues if the Angels actually were great in the major leagues. But
right,
the reason why they drafted the way that they drafted was to bring these guys up. And it's been great to watch them develop. Obviously, Zach Neto has been a guy that we've really been excited to watch. He said that Ron Washington is like a father figure to him. Mm-hmm. And so having somebody like Wash, with the influence that Wash carries in the lives of people, but specifically with like Neto and Shawnuel and some of the other players, could could potentially be a big boon for this team. Now, Wash does have a 2026 option, and that aligns with where Perry Manassian is at currently, right? And so there isn't going to have to be a major change. If they bring Wash back, they're not going to have to stick with Ray Montgomery, which I think both you and I are in the category of please don't do that, because we've seen way too much. He's very mediocre, not a great manager, not great decisions that we've seen from him. I think we do miss the Ron Washington pep talks and the rah-rah Ron Washington, right? And so I think having that on the field is great, but having a GM and a manager with their contracts coinciding with each other is always a benefit. And that's where I think some of the issues started when Perry Manassian took over. He's never been able to pick his guy. Ron was the guy that he picked. And so to be able to at least finish out their contracts together, I think would be a good option for the Halos. I could see Ron getting another option for 27, and I could see Perry Manassian getting extended through 2027, because I think that Artie really likes what Perry Manassian has done, at least through the draft and building some of this young core. I argue about that. We could say if that was really good or not, right? But trying to get into Artie's head, I think that that's kind of how he feels about Perry Manassian. So to have Manassian and Ron Washington finish next year together would be a really good idea. And we've talked about Ron's influence, which brings us to the third reason why reasonably the Angels should bring back Wash.
Yeah, there's an interesting idea in terms of, look, let's admit the fact that maybe Wash doesn't have a lot of longevity as a manager, right? Like he's got to retire at some point, and he's got to take care of his health. He's got to take care of his family. And at the same time, he wants to manage. He wants to come back. He's got the option on his contract. So, Mike, what if there was an idea of having a succession plan? I've never watched the show, but I've heard it's really good. But what if there was an idea where Ron Washington is the manager in 2026, but also having somebody as a new bench coach that isn't Ray Montgomery? Perhaps it's like a Torrey Hunter, right? Remember, Torrey Hunter wanted to be the manager of this team when the opening was there. He didn't want to coach. He didn't want to go that route. He wants to manage at some point. Mike, Albert Pujols is also available to be a manager, and he's expressed that interest, as John Heyman described. So it almost feels like you have the opportunity to, I don't know, what's the word? The heir apparent, right? Yeah. Like you can select somebody. Hey, it would be great for Torrey Hunter to be a manager. He's never managed before, but under the tutelage of Ron Washington, working side by side with him, being the bench coach, I think that's like, I don't know, an internship, I guess you could say, but like it also kind of lends itself to continuity without, compromising the fact that maybe you do want a fresh voice in there at some point. And also it kind of lends itself to the fact that, Ron, give yourself one more year and enjoy baseball and enjoy being a manager. But you kind of have a succession plan where we know that everything comes to an end this year, and then we have somebody to take over for you in 2027.
Yeah, there's going to have to be some forethought that the Angels have not shown, at least in the last 10 years, 5 years, where they've thought about the future, right? And we've joked on this show, haven't thought that far ahead. And so there would have to be some forethought in that, but I love that idea, which then brings us to the fourth reasonable reason why the Angels should bring Wash back, and that is discipline, John. The discipline that Wash brought just immediately with the infield drills. Now, let's argue, and we could get the stats out. The Angels didn't seem like they've really improved from the infield work, right? And so that's a whole nother conversation. But it was the drills and that work that really wasn't a part of this process and the Angels organization before Wash got here. But the reason why I bring up discipline is because I've really been frustrated with Luis Rengifo and his casualness. I don't want to say laziness, but maybe that's the right word, right? Casual is probably a kinder way to put it, but he just seems very casual out there. And I don't think Wash puts up with that with this team. And more importantly, John, I think that with Rengifo gone and some of these other players gone, it feels like in year 3, you start to really put your fingerprints on something. You're not inheriting somebody else's team anymore.
Right.
And so I think with Wash specifically, I think he could really set this team up and match its energy and help them to be disciplined, because what I get from this young core is that they really want to be good and they really want to play ball, and they want to be gritty and they want to be gutty and they want to kind of have that Dustin Pedroia type of attitude, right? That Torrey Hunter kind of attitude. And so I think Wash could bring that back in 2026, and he's not going to have too many knuckleheads on this team if Rendon stays away, right? Like, I think he's got a fresh core of guys, and he just has the ability to fire these dudes up because he's a proven leader. And giving him one more year to quote unquote finish what him and Perry started, I think would be a wise idea. And to be able to bring his, you can't do that. You got to get that bag mentality, right? Remember we said that about Joe Adell last year. If you're going to go get that bag, you got to go get that bag. And that's what I miss about Ron Washington and think that he could bring to the Angels in 2026.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, we talked about the reasons why Ron Washington should come back. What about 4 reasons why he should not return? We're going to get into that conversation and our thoughts at the end of the show, and we'll get into that coming right up.
Most people can't name their financial accounts or even what their worth is, or maybe even what's in their 401k or properties or investments. They just don't have a full picture of what's going on with their financial portfolio and what's happening in their bank account. And that's why you need Monarch Money. They're an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial future and financial present all together. And it does it in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives like you, our everydayers. And if you've put off organizing your finances, which I know is everyone that's watching or listening right now, Monarch's for you. They do the heavy lifting. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel like you're in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser or on your phone, and you're going to get half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year. monarchmoney.com with a promo code LockedOnMLB.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now, we talked about reasons why Ron Washington should return. Let's get into 4 reasons that we should consider why he should not return. Mike, why don't you start us out?
Yeah, I think the health conditions are a concern, right? After quadruple bypass surgery, to be able to bounce right back and be who you are. I mean, that's great that he says he's feeling better, right? But that's a big surgery. And John, he's 73 and he's going to be 74 in April of 2026. So I just wonder about his long-term stamina. You know, Braves fans and Locked On Braves talks about Ron Washington being like the key missing piece in why the Braves are struggling so much. And it's because of his attitude. It's because of his inspirational, motivational conversations. But one of the things that he didn't do with the Braves is manage. He was a base coach, right? Yeah. So he didn't have to carry everything. A manager is like the CEO of the team. You carry everything. And you and I noticed at the start of the year, he was very quiet when bad calls went the Angels' way. And then when this whole issue came out, health issue, ended up being a heart issue, it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
Here's where I would be a bit concerned. I need a manager that's going to say, "Hey, Blue," right? Like I need a manager that's going to yell out, and that was low. Right now, I know we're going to have the challenge system next year, and maybe some of that won't be necessary, but I still need a manager that's going to get fired up for the boys. I need a guy who's a little bit fiery. I need a guy who's a little bit excited, right? Not so much Phil Nevin and not so much Mike Scioscia, but kind of in the middle there. And I just wonder if Wash's health concerns and Wash's age and being an older guy, if this is something that he's going to be able to carry. Now, there's rumors that Texas Rangers manager is probably not going to continue because of of his health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's getting up there in age. But then there's also conversations like, oh, he'll probably take another job somewhere else where he's a bit more comfortable. I get that these guys can manage for years and years and years. I just wonder if Wash has the stamina in him to be able to get this team to the next level, because what they're going to need is somebody who is on their butts for the entire 162 games, right? They don't need casualness. They don't need somebody who's like, hey, get them next time. It's year 3 of this young core being together. They need guys that are going to be on them, that are going to be pushing them, that are going to be pulling them. Like, they need guys and a manager that's going to not allow excuses to get in the way. And so that's what I think they need in a manager. And that's why I think it might be unwise and unreasonable to bring Wash back in 2026.
Yeah, it comes up with our second reason. You mentioned, next year would be really honestly year 3 of this young core together. And you kind of wonder, the clock's ticking on some of that, Mike.
Yeah.
The clock's ticking on guys like Joe Adell and maybe even Reed Detmers, right? Taylor Ward's last year will be 2026. Mike Trout isn't getting any younger. Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe are going to be around, but you want to make sure that you use these guys to their full potential while they're affordable and controllable, and you're running out of time with each year that passes by. So it kind of makes you wonder, reason number 2, you think there needs to be a fresh voice in this system rather than somebody who's been here before, rather than somebody who, was here and was then unable to be here. And I'll say this, I think Ron Washington has done a lot for the young core. He's done a lot for the young guys on this team. I know last year was really, really rough, but it had to be, right? I don't think this year happens without everything that they went through last year. I don't think Zach Neto has the season he has this year and last year without Ron Washington. I don't think Joe Adell takes the step forward this year without the season they had last year. So it's not as if everything he's done was, a wash. Hey-o. But I will say it would be kind of nice to have somebody who, like you said, drives a hard bargain, drives these guys really hard. Maybe it's a Darren Erstad, right? You've mentioned before that Darren Erstad would be great for a couple of years before he wore thin with his, like, I don't know, rough demeanor, or the fact that he's like going to be the drill sergeant, so to speak, right? I think you made a good comparison to him and Harbaugh in San Francisco when Jim Harbaugh was the head coach of the 49ers. And so, yeah, maybe there's something that the Angels could do in terms of bringing in a fresh voice that kind of takes advantage of the fact of what the Angels have now. Maybe that fresh voice doesn't have to be somebody new, but it could be an experienced manager. You brought up Buck Showalter the other day, right? He could be somebody who could help these guys take a step forward. But if the Angels don't go that route, there's actually kind of some people within the organization, right, Mike, who could take the reins as manager in 2026.
Yeah, there's some emerging talent within the organization, which I think is the third reason why maybe you don't bring Wash back. You tap into that talent. We mentioned Torrey Hunter. He was in Texas, John, and was with the team in Texas. Actually had a great conversation with the OC Register, Jeff Fletcher, about Bryce Teodosio and how Bryce is a great center fielder and sees a lot of growth and development in him and could be somebody who plays really good defense for the Halos. And if his bat comes around, which Torrey said, I think his bat will come around, and here's what I would help him do. You already saw a bit of Torrey Hunter's managerial skills there. He's got some of that in him. I also think the mention of Albert Pujols is interesting, right? He's somebody who has managed in some international leagues, and
he's done well. He's won it all.
Yeah. I mean, he carries himself really well. I got to wonder, and I know Heyman said that things are okay with the ending, not inning, but ending in Anaheim. Truth is that I think if Albert took this job, if the Angels wanted him, I think that Artie would be cool with that, because they had this 10-year agreement after his long-term agreement on the field. And so to have him around, especially with the international flavor that he brings, could be a benefit to some of the young guys like Gabriel Davalillo is coming up. There's a lot of young guys that could be Josue Lugo. I mean, I think having somebody that you can see yourself in as a manager that is going to speak your language literally, I think is helpful for the development of this team. I think that there's some young, talented individuals that the Angels could tap into and bring into this organization. And you mentioned this. You mentioned fresh voices. John, our fourth reason is, I think, a need for fresh perspective. And the difference between voices and perspective is like, let's just clear the slate. And you and I have said multiple times, I think it's time to just kind of clear the slate of coaches and bring in another crop of fresh coaches that aren't coaches that you just found on the side of the road, but like coaches that are perhaps former ball players. And if you get a Torrey Hunter or if you get an Albert Pujols, maybe they have a couple of guys coming along with him. One of our everydayers said, why not have Kyle Hendricks be the pitching coach next year, right? Like, and I don't think Barry is going anywhere. I think out of all the coaches, Barry's probably been the best coach, but there's
not after this weekend.
This weekend was not great. Yeah, I guess let me just rewind the tape and take that back. Right?
I still like Barry, but yeah that was just Soriano Kikuchi, man. What the heck?
Not great. Now, but I mean, those are my thoughts when it comes to like emerging talent and a fresh perspective. What are yours?
When you think about a fresh perspective, it's kind of built into the role, right? Like you have a manager and then he gets to select his coaching staff around him. That's why, we had Marcus Timms as our hitting coach for 1 year. He worked with Phil Nevin in New York for the Yankees. And that's why he brought him in.
Yep.
It's familiarity, right? And so then you think about, all right, well, who's Torrey Hunter played with? Who's Torrey Hunter worked with? Who's Albert Pujols played with and worked with, right? Bring in freaking Adam Wainwright.
Yeah.
Bring in Yadi Molina, right? Bring everybody in, right? And same goes with Torrey Hunter. Maybe we all get our wish and we get ourselves a Jared Weaver, ding, right? We get our Jared Weaver as pitching coach. I know that he probably doesn't want to do that, but I'm just saying, when you bring a fresh perspective as a manager, you have to consider who's coming with that manager. And look, it was great that we got a new staff in 2024. And I think it was necessary, right? Matt Wise, what did he even do? And so,
Nothing.
And that was just way too long for him to be sticking around. So I think at the very least, to have a fresh perspective is to bring a fresh slate, a clean slate to all aspects of the game, including the coaching staff. I mean, we've seen it. We see where the home runs are and we see where the strikeouts are for this team. And there's a reason for that. And so I think if you bring in a fresh perspective along with a new manager, I think that's going to go a long way for this team to improve in the areas they need to improve. And yeah, look, maybe home runs take a step back. Whoop-de-doo, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't need to be top 5 in home runs in the league, but still have a sub 500 record and be fighting with the A's for last place in the ALS. That does nothing for us, right? And it's great that Taylor Ward has 30 home runs and as many RBIs as he does. That's the RBIs come with home runs, but at the same time, there are other ways to get RBIs. There are other ways to drive in runs, and it doesn't always have to live or die by the home run ball. And so I think a fresh perspective from a coaching perspective, I think is going to be a very good thing for this team in 2026.
It's Monday. You need a boost to power through the day, but you don't want to reach for another cup of coffee or maybe an energy drink. That's where Zippix caffeine toothpicks come in. Instead of going for that sugary drink and then you're going to crash, Zippix gives you a clean, convenient burst of caffeine anytime, anywhere. And if you're looking for that nicotine satisfaction, they've got Zippix nicotine toothpicks as well. I've been doing my best Scott Hall impression over the last couple of days with Zippix, using the caffeine toothpicks before long days at work or maybe big meetings, long drives, even late nights watching the games. They give me the extra push that I need without all of the jitters. I'm getting really excited over here. The flavors are legit: peppermint, watermelon.
Did you have one before the show?
I must have, right? They're all really great. They give you energy and they taste great. So it's time to try them. Go to zippixtoothpicks.com and use our promo code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. That's zippixtoothpicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Zippix Toothpicks, energy and focus anytime you need it.
So a lot of times on the show, we like to give you, not necessarily pros and cons, but we like to talk through everything, right? And we talked through 4 reasons why we should bring back Ron Washington in 2026, 4 reasons why we shouldn't bring him back in 2026. And in conclusion, I was a former English teacher, high school English teacher. This is how you write your papers, right? You structure, and then give your conclusion. So, Michael, when it comes to Ron Washington coming back in 2026, what is your conclusion, my friend?
I have been pushed into a corner by my favorite team. And so my conclusion is based upon the fact that I just don't have really high hopes or high trust in this organization. And they have proven to not earn my trust and not have me to place hope in them. So,
or anybody.
so do I want Wash back in 26? I do. And here's why. I don't think that there's a better option for them. I don't think that they think that there's a better option for them. And I don't think that they've even thought about if there's a better option for them. Because Barry Manassian, when he's asked about this team and when Sam Blum asked him about making a push for the playoffs and all of those things, he's like, well, yeah, we're just trying to do it day by day. What about next year? I haven't really thought that far ahead, right? And so I think that my conclusion is I think he's the best option for what we have right now for this team. It's not Ray Montgomery because Ray Montgomery is just not a manager. I don't even know if he's a good second chair. I think they need to get Wash a better second chair if they're going to go with him in 2026. Here's why I think Wash should be back, could be back, and is the best option for 2026 because he brings life to the managerial position. And I think that that's what this team needs. They need some life. They need some discipline. They need somebody there that is going to manage more gut. He's going to use some of the metrics and stats and analytics and those things, but he's going to make decisions based on the gut. He's going to go out there in the 5th inning with 2 outs and go, can you get me one more? And then they're going to get him one more, or I'm going to take you out right now because you look like you're out of gas. Right. Yeah. And so I would love to have him back in 2026 because what this team has taught me is don't count on them doing the real great thing or the real smart thing or the real wise thing. Count on them doing maybe what is like 3rd or 4th on the list, what is mediocre, what is neutral, right? And I think that the most powerful decision they can make for 2026 for this organization in the managerial spot would be to bring Wash back, because I don't think that they have even thought about other options or if there is a better option. And I think him and Perry and their continuity can work together. Wash has said, if he wants me back, I'm going to come back. I think they got to let him run it back one more year. Does that help our team? That's a whole nother show and a whole nother segment. Yeah. But I what I've learned from the Angels is that you can't trust them and you can't place your hope in them. And this is the best of the mediocre options. So yes, I would want Wash back in 2026.
Okay, I think I'm going to take it in a different direction. And you guys are going to be shocked by what I'm going to say. Here's where I think the managerial decision needs to go. It needs to go to Artie Moreno, Mike. And the reason why is because the last time Artie had a good connection with a manager was Mike Scioscia. And Mike Scioscia had a leash. He had the ability to influence decisions within the organization. He was somebody that Artie Moreno leaned on to help push this direction or push this team in a direction that was successful. A lot of that was Scioscia's track record. He was already there. He won the World Series when Artie came into the organization and bought the organization, right? But at the same time, he got the extension and he was able to see it all the way through. He didn't get fired. He didn't get let go. His time was up at the end of his contract. It had been a good, 16 years, right? And so they, at that point, wanted a fresh perspective. Mike, I think if Artie Moreno has somebody that he can trust, like a Torrey Hunter or an Albert Pujols as the manager, that's only going to be good for us fans. And I'm not saying that I trust Artie Moreno. What I am saying is you need a manager that can get Artie Moreno's ear and influence the direction of this team in a positive direction. I don't think Albert Pujols would put up with the mediocrity that there's been the last couple of years. And I know that he was part of that as a player. I don't think Torrey Hunter would want to put up with mediocrity. I think that they would want to pick a lane, pick a direction. Hey, If we've got to, trade assets and rebuild, then let's do that. If we're going to go for it, then let's freaking go for it. Let's not say we're competitive. Let's actually be competitive. And Artie, here's what I need on the field from you. And I think that if anybody can do that, it's former Angels, for better, for worse, right? I know we all glorify our former Halos, especially Artie Moreno. However, that's kind of the only way you can get at him, Mike. That's kind of the only way that you can have some stock and build a relationship with Artie, is if, well, you're part of the glory days, right? And certainly those two were part of the glory days. And so whether it's Hunter, whether it's Pujols, I think a new direction would be a lot of fun. I think it would be worth their time to do so. But most importantly, I think those guys, Artie has their respect. They have Artie's respect, I should say. And I think that that's important. And for as much as it's silly to be like, oh yeah, bring back the 0-2 team and do this and do that. If that's the filter through which Artie Moreno wants to view this team and how they play in 2026, fine. As long as he's listening to somebody, right? And he brought in Joe Madden and it didn't work out. And they bring in Ron Washington, who's, not a former Angel, but a respected voice. I think you got to go the former Angel player route, the glory days of the Angels. And I'm not saying that because I want to see fans, or I want to be a fanboy of those two guys, because I watched those guys playing in the early and late 2000s and 2010s. I'm saying that that's the best way for action to take place with the Angels, is if he has a manager like he did with Mike Scioscia, who he puts full faith, full trust in to do something with this team. He actually listened to Scioscia. And even when it came down to Dipoto and Scioscia, Dipoto left because they trusted Scioscia more. And I think you need somebody like that in the organization with Pujols and Torrey Hunter. I think that in terms of continuity, I think Torrey Hunter would make a great choice, because I think in terms of energy and enthusiasm, the kind of way that he played, I think that he fits that Ron Washington bill. But Pujols has proven to manage a game well. And so, there's one aspect of it of, are you a good locker room guy? And are you a good mind on the field when it comes time to, hey, I gotta pull this guy. I need to go to my bullpen right now. There's a whole aspect to this conversation that we haven't been able to cover. Look, Dusty Baker, when he retired, Joe Espada was the bench coach, and he got the job of the Astros, and they're still doing good. It's not as if they've absolutely fallen apart. They're in first place, and they've had a couple good years since Dusty Baker retired, and Joe Espada was the heir apparent, right? Yeah. So maybe if that's what they do next year, like we suggested in segment 1, that could be a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, I can't believe I hear myself saying this, but Artie Moreno needs somebody that he wants as manager. And I think it's got to be a Pujols. I think it's got to be a Torrey Hunter. I think it's got to be a Angels Glory Day guys. I can already hear Bruce Springsteen playing over and over again. But it's got to be somebody that he'll listen to and help this front office and this team pick a lane and pick a direction once and for all.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV, they present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview show. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12, Gary Patterson, a former AP Coach of the Year, and then former college star Jesse Holley and Locked On experts are all on the show, and the show is available on Fire TV every Thursday, so don't miss it. That's the Locked On College Preview Football Show. Can't wait to watch that alongside you.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, whether you're watching or listening. Come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section, hit that like and subscribe button. Find today's show on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you there. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Yeah, we're going to give you an update on when Nolan Shonwell is coming back, and we've got a heavy update on Rio Foster and what's going on with him, the young man that was in the car accident. So all of that is tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, we're looking forward to having you back here on Locked On Angels. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
Now I've got glory days stuck in my head. Glory days.